brothers and sisters. I think that the details of how French workers and the French youth, including students, are carrying out their stubborn, months-long struggle are important. The class struggle in France might currently be inundated, given the floods in northern France and around Paris, but it hasn't been extinguished. I'll point out that I and other Workers' World writers have covered these details both in the current and the past issues of the paper more than the New York Times has covered the same struggles. Now let me point out the reason for that. We cover them because in France, the workers have a chance of winning an important victory. The New York Times doesn't want to bring that fact out. But I think that describing how the labor movement in France is organized and functions will explain why the French bourgeoisie wants to change the labor law and why the unions and the workers they represent and the youth whose aspiration is to become a worker with a job want this new law withdrawn, not amended, withdrawn. There are a lot of other issues swirling around this struggle, which started in March, but this is the nub of the contract. Just a few key facts about French workers. The working class in France is multinational, with significant participation of North African and West African workers, and of course, all workers from all the areas of the world where French imperialism has penetrated. Another important fact is that a French worker has an individual right to strike guaranteed in the Constitution. That makes the union organizing a bit different. Unions in France are not organized at all like unions in the United States, Canada, Germany, or England. I will point out a few of the differences, but I want to focus on the main struggle and not get lost in the brush. And let me tell you, the labor law in France is 3,000 pages, and it's about yay thick. Now, only 8% of French workers pay dues to a union. But 98% of them work under a collectively bargained labor agreement. That's very significant. I don't think that there's another labor situation that I know of in a developed country where this happens. A worker pays dues to a union if they want to attend union meetings or be elected to a union position. Now, most large work sites have 2 or more unions present. As Key Martin, a dearly beloved friend and comrade of ours who died a number of years ago, pointed out, that unions in France operate as political parties in the workplace. So people will make a choice of, say, joining a particular political party. I want a very militant, radical union. I join the CGT. But I don't like militant, radical unions because they take up political positions that I'm not concerned about. So I'll join Force Ouvrière. Anyway, they join them. One union at a company can and does often strike while the others keep on working. Well, how do they call a strike at a plant? Well, the total refinery in Le Havre, okay, showed how they do it. About 70% of the plant supports the CGT or Force Ouvrière. 30% supports a right-wing union called the CFDT. They call a general assembly where workers vote, generally every day or every other day, whether the strike should be continued. And at total, they voted to continue the strike. Okay. And if the General Assembly votes to continue the strike, to hold the strike, you cross the picket line, you're a scab. Every 4 years, there's an election for a workers' council in work sites with more than 50 employees, more or less. There are also elections for delegates who have the legal right to negotiate with the company over a number of issues and to represent the workers who elected them. The bosses, by law, have to bargain with these councils. It's not, you sign a contract once every 4 or 6 years. Okay, you have to bargain monthly, weekly with these delegates and with these councils. Companies are put into various sectors, like all the refineries are in the chemical sector. And the printing and dock workers. So a statement like the CGT has 74% of the dock workers means that the CGT slates in these work council elections got 74% of the vote. They don't have 74% of the dock workers, which is about 25 to 30,000 workers in France paying dues to the CGT, but they do have their support. And if the CGT calls for a demonstration, they can bring out hundreds of thousands of workers into the streets in France. So they're maybe only have 3% of the workers pay dues to the CGT, but many others respect them and will fight along with them and take their leadership. The unions which get a certain percentage of the vote in these worker council elections, currently 10%, get to sit at the bargaining table with the employers in the sector. The agreement reached in these bargaining sessions applies to all the companies in that particular sector. For example, refineries all throughout France have the same pay, hours, compensation for weekend work, etc., etc. And sometimes there's emergencies in refineries, so they have to call you in. You get paid overtime. And the overtime doesn't have a limit like you make $48,735, and you get overtime if you make $1 more a year. You don't. You get overtime. Now, these agreements can be modified by the union and the company, in a particular company, if they improve the situation, but not if they contradict the agreement that's been made. So that, for example, a union in a chemical factory can negotiate for bonuses if safety standards are achieved or exceeded. Okay, but they couldn't say remove the safety standards. They can't do. This operates both on a sector level, the industry, what they call an industry-wide level, but also on the national level. What the new labor law seeks to do is to make an agreement between an individual company and its unions, the basic agreement replacing the master agreement on the sector, industry-wide, or national level. There no longer would be a sector wide agreements that apply to all companies. This reversal of norms would obviously reduce the power of the unions. That's the nub of the fight that's brought hundreds of thousands of workers into the streets in France and, has shaken the French bourgeoisie and the French government. And in the interest of time, I'll just say that I was going to talk about how the socialist government, which is such a misnomer, I mean, they've been managing the French imperialist state for decades when they haven't been replaced by more right-wing groups, more right-wing. Notice how I put that. And I think there are many French progressives that would agree with me on that. But, so they've been spending money on teachers, on students, and the college students, get stipends. So when the stipends were negotiated, the Minister of Education and the Minister of the Economy negotiated the deal with the chairperson and his adjoint from the National Union of French Students. That's how they do it in France. All I will say is this, that the floods in France are very serious. They're shutting down roads and highways and subway lines, etc., etc. Paris is scheduled to hold Euro 2016, which is a major continental-wide football tournament, soccer tournament for people. But they're going to have tens of thousands of people in the city. But people know that it's coming, and there's going to be a lot of struggle over that. The other thing is that it's taken a long time. There seems to be solidarity building with the French unions and the French workers. And in New York City, there will be on June 14th, there will be a demonstration at the French consulate, I believe, and there will be a symposium workshop at SEIU 1199. The French workers have a chance to win, and I think every little bit of solidarity that we give to them would be highly helpful. The other thing, totally separate from that, is I'm sorry I didn't present a slideshow, but I'll tell you how to get one. Okay, go to Google, type in France strikes 2016, look at the images. When I looked at it, they were at least 4,000 or 5,000 pictures that you can see, and it's very good. And I just didn't have time to pick out the 8 or 10 that would make all the points I wanted to make. But anyway, they're there. Use them. Thank you. I would answer Jim's comment. That was John. It was a statement about looking for intellectuals to support the French unions under the ideological attack that's coming down on them from the French bourgeoisie, where they've been called terrorists by the head of the French equivalent of the big business organization. And but the thing that just struck me as I was listening to the talks is that at the CGT National Convention that was held in April in Marseille, they had devoted a morning to a representative of SEIU and the Fight for 15 to come talk to their convention and tell them how the struggle was going in the United States. And they expressed their heartfelt solidarity with that struggle, gave them a substantial donation in U.S. dollars, and really, said that they wanted to build up solidarity and working relations, which is why I think that this statement about the solidarity that the picket line and the whatever you call it, the symposium or the meeting on June 14th, which is the day that there's going to be the equivalent of a general strike in France to protest this law, is taking place, which will be the 10th major national demonstration since March. They've been having a few of them, and they're fighting hard, and they do have a chance to win, and I think, as people have expressed, every little bit of solidarity will be significant. Thank you.